We on. Oh, ain't nobody here yet. We're gonna give a minute. See who gonna show up first. See, can't be me. I can't be the first one, no. Who gonna be the first one on? Let's see. Hmm. Hey, somebody's on. All right, all right. Oh, a little parched there. So it's Friday night, people. What's up? What it do? What it do? What it do? I see we got a couple people in the house, so I'm gonna go and get started. This has been a rough week. You know, I lost a friend. I lost a childhood friend, partner I grew up with back in the day. My boy Manzi. It's rough, you know what I mean. Seeing the people that your age just falling off, like dropping like flies. It's uh, it's weird. I guess, you know what I mean. I guess I'm just feeling, feeling my existence, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I feels like I got more life behind me than I got in front of me. No, don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm still indestructible. Still can't stop, won't stop. Still gonna keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm that's what got me here. That's what got me to this point. That can't stop, won't stop. I broke my back and I drove a quad off the side of a mountain, broke my back in two places, got up and walked out the hospital that day. Now all I did was take a few steps and get in my auntie's van, and she took me to the house. I was able to lay up for about a week. Then, you know what I'm saying, back broke, everything. Back broke, nose broke, toe broke, foot broke. I was messed up, but my arm was broke. They set the dislocated wrist, but they never set the broken bone in my arm. So here it is, a week and a half later, I get back down to San Diego, and there, I'm saying, you know what? I'm saying, your bone isn't touching, it's dying. You need immediate emergency surgery to repair this. So I ended up, I'm saying, with a plate and six screws in my arm because they didn't take care of it properly where I was at. And it was crazy because the doctors had to be quacks. I don't understand, because not only that, I was in there while they was doing my arm, and there was a whole situation on that. Against the finally catch one. What up, cousin? Finally, I'm saying, I see you. I see you, man. I'm saying, I seen you got that little spot too. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Proud of him. Keep pushing. Can't stop, won't stop. You know how we do. You know. Nah, but I'm saying, it's been a rough week. Manzi, I lost my boy Manzi. And that was, when we started banging. You know what I mean? We was he was J Rock, I was little J Rock, because his name was James and I was Joey. So, I mean, what I'm saying? He was, what I'm saying, mixed, half black, half white. I was, what I'm saying, light, bright. Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of fit together, and he was he was a good big homie. We always joked about that because I didn't the name. How you give yourself your own name, and a lot of people, they give their. So I remember a dude used to call himself Lil Homicide. And it was cool, you know what I'm saying? It was a sick name, but you know what I'm saying? He wasn't fist kill nothing, wasn't fist let nothing die. um, sorry for the loss, no. Hey, yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's all good, you know what I'm saying? He in a better place, man. No more pain. Yeah, man's he gone, Key. It's man, that was my dog, man. You know what I'm saying? You was there when we was playing softball, you know what I'm saying? I remember that year, man. That was a good year. We whooped on everybody. Yeah, that was a good year. We had, you know what I'm saying, we had Lil Bay, we had the fourth district, you know what I'm saying, we had, you know what I'm saying, we had homies. You know what I mean? It was real homies, you know what I'm saying? I remember being at the games at Kalina Park and I was on paperwork. So I was, you know what I'm saying, I was in, you know what I'm saying, trying to stay out the way. And then, you know what I'm saying, what happened, you know what I'm saying? I remember when the police raided the joint, you know what I mean, because some females started fighting. It was some craziness as usual, you know how it goes. But the police station is right there. They also got a golf course, you know what I mean, right there. So the people at the golf course seen black folks, you know what I'm saying, scuffling and you know what I'm saying, the world is ending. So they call the police. The substation is right there. You know what I'm saying? The parking lot across the street from the parking lot is the police substation. So they, you know what I'm saying, run all up in the park and jack everybody up. You know what I'm saying? I slid in with the homie Archie's sister Shay was up there barbecuing. I slid in with the family, like, hey, what's with my plate? And you know what I'm saying, the police didn't notice me, but I was on paperwork. So I was, you know what I'm saying, I was worried, you know what I mean, because that's a loss, you know what I'm saying? You get caught up, it don't even matter, you know what I'm saying? You document it and you know what I'm saying, I kind of but at the time, you know what I'm saying, the police, I was DWW. I was driving while whites. I slid under the radar. Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? Them was some good old days, man. I was gonna post that picture up, you know what I'm saying, of you and me at the baseball games, man. Whack, I'm talking to you. I was just looking through my pictures, man. I seen that picture, you know what I mean? Need to get you back, you know what I'm saying, get you back to that size. Nah, but we send our love, dog. You know what I'm saying? Keep pushing. It's real. You know what I mean? It's going to be temptation. It's going to be hard. It's going to be, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a whole bunch of stuff trying to, you know what I'm saying? Trigger you, twist you, and get you caught up. Don't let it get you, dog. You know what you got to do. Mind over matter. If you don't mind, then it don't matter. But stay strong. You know my number. You got my line. I ain't hard to find. So motherfucker always here for you. You know what I'm saying, for his folks. So yeah, I was talking about like I'm looking at life and I see I got more life behind me. I'm 53 now, so you know what I'm saying. I figure I got another 50 left in me. And this is just the first 50 is over. Now I'm working on the second 50. But I had to do some drastic changes, you know what I mean? Because I was having, physical issues, behind eating the processed food and the fast food and not taking care of myself as I should. And, now, what I'm truthfully, you know what I'm saying, it's with the help of my wife. You know what I mean? I've changed my eating habits. I'm feeling better. I was having some like medical issues, and now you know what I'm saying. I'm off all a meds. You know what I'm saying. I'm doing my little exercises. You know what I'm saying, with the wifey. But you know what I'm saying. I'm living my best life. You know what I mean. I'm down from 310. I got all the way up to 310 pounds, and that's the biggest I ever been. Because I'm usually I'm like 240, 220, 240. That's my fighting weight. That was my, you know what I'm saying? That was my prison weight. And that's when I was, you know what I'm saying, I was ready to go. And now I'm a little slower, I'm a little older, but I know a few more things. And you know what I'm saying, with that slowness comes, I'm saying, thought. So I have a little more time to think. And that's the best part is I'm thinking. Because before I wasn't thinking. I was just reacting and that was the way it was. Yeah, I know what it is, dog. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? So now I'm looking at, I'm saying, this is this 50, what I'm gonna do with this 50, because it's still a big ass world out there, but it's a little, I'm saying, in question right now, I'm saying, as to what's going on and where we going and what we're gonna be doing and how it's gonna be happening and I'm not sure. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I know they're not going to let the system stop because if the system stops, it's going to get bad for a lot of people. Now, I believe they want this because this is going to give them more power. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how all that stuff works, but you know what I'm saying? Someone told me it's a lot of smarter people a lot of people smarter than me, and they've been making this work. So, hopefully, I'm saying they got some plans because I don't know how all this works. I'm new to like I don't like politics. I don't trust. I think I'm saying the system is set up that I think the system that is set up is all bad. Well, I think well, I don't know. Maybe they got me brainwashed, what I'm saying, into thinking that our country got took over in 1913, with the, if you know, you know. But that's not what this is about tonight. It's been, I'm saying, I'm just looking at, what I'm going to do now. So that's where my mind has been the last couple of days because I got another friend that's, I'm saying, he's, I'm saying, he's on his deathbed. He's his body's shutting down and he didn't take care of himself. That's why I'm glad I'm taking care of myself now, but it's it's like it's different. I'm a grandpa now. That's strange because in my head I'm still Snow Rock. I'm still White Boy Joey. I'm still that little scared little kid. I'm still the kid that just wanted a name and a reputation. I just wanted somebody to know who I am. I just wanted to be recognized. That was it. That's what it was. I just wanted to be recognized, and I didn't know how to get attention in a positive way. So I did things that were not positive, but they got me attention all the same. It wasn't good attention, but it was attention. That's the thing. Like I said, I'm scared of the food and the stuff in the foods. It's not only that. Like the sodas. I used to be addicted. I was addicted to Pepsi. I was a Pepsi fiend. I had to have like a super big go. And you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about all day. I'm saying, in traffic, ripping and running. And here I am, I'm saying, once this super big go, I'm stopping and I'm a refill, get the free refills and fill this thing back up. And here's another 30 to 44 ounces of straight sugar, high fructose corn syrup. And this shit is beating up my insides and I don't realize it. But at the same time, it's like you're addicted to it because if you don't have it, you like, oh, you're jonesing for, oh, I gotta give me another soda, to get that burn, get the feel, I'm saying, ice cold Coca-Cola or ice cold Pepsi. That's the thing, and I used to all day, every day, I'm just soda, soda, soda. And now it's like You know what I'm saying? At work I drink bottled water because that's what they have at work. So, what I mean? But when I'm at home, I drink distilled water. Why? Because, I'm saying, I'm scared of everything. I've seen where, I'm saying, they do tests on the bottled water, and it's, I'm saying, got shit in it. And that's the thing. I've already heard that the bottled water doesn't have to be tested. No one is testing it. They can go up, I'm saying, take a truckload of bottles and fill them all up with piss and tell you this is mountain spring water. And, I'm saying, and give it to you. And ain't nobody testing this water. Ain't nobody checking it. There's no regulation. There's no one watching. And I don't trust people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look at what you get when you trust. You know what I mean? Think about all the things that we thought were okay. They handed out. They used to have candy cigarettes, and cigarettes are killing people. You know what I'm saying? Have been. Look, what I'm saying, I've stopped smoking. It's been almost what 10, 11 years now. But I was killing myself. I was in prison. I was, what I'm saying, rolling bugler. I got out of prison. I was rolling my own buglers for 2 years. It wasn't until I broke my arm and I was unable to roll the cigarettes that I started buying packs of cigarettes. And what I'm saying, I was getting it raw, and it was killing me. I was, and then that's the thing, when I stopped smoking, it was just like little by little. Every year, I was gaining a couple pounds, and a couple pounds, and 5, 6 pounds, and then every year, just little by little, it added on and added on, and I got up to be as big as I've ever been. And when I was 310, I felt it. I was uncomfortable. Yeah, I was uncomfortable. Uh, when I Felix, when I hit 50, it wasn't the same. My body let me know that real quick. I felt them cigarettes differently. Started having breathing problems. Everything changes. Yeah, see, I didn't even get there, man. What I'm saying, like I said, it was 10 years ago, so I was in my 40s, and I was smoking since I was a teenager. My dad told me, I'm saying, boy, you old enough to smoke. You old enough to buy your own. When you buy your own, you old enough to smoke. And then that motherfucker kept begging me for cigarettes. Anyway, another story. But what I'm saying, it was rough, and I remember when I quit. I was in prison, and then one cigarette. This is a rollie, and you don't even get a rolling paper. And they had what they call Muletex. Muletex is basically the wrapper that goes on the toilet paper, right? And this stuff is thick, and it got ink in it. You know what I mean? Because it got designs on the outside, and people roll and smoke their tobacco in that, or you gotta pay a soup and buy one rolling paper from the guy. So, it at the time, I'm saying, that's the way it was. If you're incarcerated, this is what you had to deal with. So, I was a hustler, and I would, I'm saying, I was buying large quantities of tobacco because I had a connection. One of my homies, when I got to the prison, had, I'm saying, access, and he was bringing stuff in. So he told me he would give me a can of Bugler, which is a can of tobacco, and you can make $800 off, selling this can in pieces. So he gave me the can for 250. I'm winning. So, I get somebody, look, I'm saying, you want to buy a can, I'll sell you a can, I'm saying, but I need the money up front. And so they would give me, I'm saying, $400. And then I would give him $250, and I would put 150 in my pocket. And I'm saying, this went on, I'm saying, I was getting, like I said, I was buying and selling tobacco. And what the reason I stopped smoking was because I was tired, and I just had enough. So I stopped smoking in prison for a whole year. Now time goes by in there. There's a lot of distractions. So I stopped smoking on, and this was a mental challenge for me because I was going through a period where I was trying to I was questioning, who's in control inside here, because that's the one I need to get in contact with. So while I was working on myself and learning, uh, this came about. And so I challenged myself to stop smoking. So I stopped smoking for a whole year. And then I found out, I realized it was a whole year. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go smoke a cigarette just to celebrate. It's been a whole year. So I went and I smoked a cigarette by myself, because a lot of people, everybody wants to smoke with you, especially if they ain't got to pay for it. So, I crept away, went, sitting in the bathroom to the window and went to smoke my cigarette. And I got halfway through the cigarette and I had a headache. My stomach was upset. I was feeling sick, queasy. It was all bad. And I remember, I threw the cigarette away halfway, threw it in the toilet, and just went lay down on my rack, and then just laid there, sick, straight sick to my stomach, everything, and just went to sleep, just thinking, man, I ain't smoking no more. And I can't even deal with the smell of it anymore. I'm glad, because like I said, I can breathe. I got a little wind now. I don't have a lot of wind, but I got a little wind now. Back then when I was smoking, I was doing a lot, but I still look. I'm I'm looking at things like, it's time to do something. I don't know what, but it's time to do something. So, we're gonna have to make some alterations on the life path, because a lot of things is up in the air. I don't know, what's what, so I'm a gay, I'm a survivor. I'm a can't stop, won't stop. I'm a push. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make it happen. And if you don't know what push is, just for me, to let you know, push is an acronym. Pray until something happens. Pray until something happens. Whatever your higher power is. See, I went through this when I was first in recovery. I was going through the what is a higher power, and who is God, and what is, what I mean, where am I at on all this, so it got to the point where I was like, man, look, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going, I'm just gonna trust and believe. This is what I was raised with. This is, and I took a step in that direction, and then there was two steps taken towards me, and I felt the embrace. It's it it got me to where this is the best life I've ever lived. This is the best I've ever been doing. I don't have everything. I'm not rich. I'm not, I work 10 hours a day, but I got a good job. You know what I mean? The company I work for is the best company I've ever worked for. I brag about it all the time, but truth being told, the company I work for, I believe HP Communications saved my life, because they like I said, when I was a kid, I just wanted to be recognized. They picked me up and they gave me a career. You know what I mean? I'm a lineman. I'm a fiber optics technician. I'm a machine operator. I'm a equipment operator. I'm a lead man. I'm the tool man. I wear many hats, but the company I work for has trained me. They laced me up. They gave me tools that I can use, because don't get me wrong, I'm a work in progress. Like I said, when I got out of prison, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I wasn't going back to the cage. I wanted to do something different. So that's when it was time for me to do something different because I've learned that this really works. If you want something different, then you got to do something different. Can't nobody do it for you. The people that love you, the people that care about you, they can pray for you, but they can't do it for you. If you don't do it, it's not going to get done. Now, me personally, I believe that a man becomes a man when he gets left on his own. And when he realizes that no one is coming to save you, that's when you realize you got to get up and save yourself. Is it worth it to you? Because I was there. I can only speak on my experiences. I don't have all the answers. I can only speak on my experiences, and my experience was rough. But the ones that have the most tribulation in their lives are the ones who were made for that. And you know what I'm saying? I'm a survivor. I'm not a man. Look, ain't no complaints from me. I am blessed by the best and praying for the rest. Like I say, this is the best life I've ever lived. This is, I don't know. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You know what I'm saying? I'm blessed by the best and praying for the rest because somebody was praying for me when I was out there ripping and running and out in the streets. I'm glad I ain't out in the streets no more. It's cold in them streets, and them streets don't give a damn. Them streets don't care about you. The game don't give a fuck about you. Everybody think it's a game. It's a game. You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Because if it is a game, what happens if you lose? You know, I don't like to lose. But I ain't competing with nobody. My goal is, I'm saying, I said this before. My goal is to be better than I was yesterday. That's it. That's it. And that's getting harder to do because I did a hell of a job yesterday. But, I'm saying, tomorrow I have another, hopefully, I'm saying, I pray, I'm saying that I wake up. And every morning I wake up, I'm thankful because I was given another opportunity to do better than I did the day before. Look, that has got me here. That has got me here. And this is for me, you know, I lived in a cage. I spent over 20 years of my life, and that's almost half. And that's just in the California prison system, not counting the 2 or 3, I'm saying, that I spent doing juvenile time. Because, like I said, my first offense, I was 9 years old. And, you know, I, my first term in prison, I did 3 years. I got out. I stayed out 7 months. And then I went back to prison for 12 years and 7 months. And then I got out and I stayed out 5 years. And then I went back and did 5 years and 7 months. And now, you know what I'm saying, I've been out. This is the longest I've been out since I was 9 years old. So I'm I'm gonna celebrate when I get to 10 years. But I'm already, I'm saying this is the longest I've been out since I was 9 years old. That's sad. That's sad. And I'm 53. That's sad. But that's okay though. I'm not complaining. I'm not asking for nobody's sympathy. I'm saying, I'm living my best life. I am, I'm saying, Grandpa Joey, nice to meet you. But I'm saying, life is good. And I'm gonna keep pushing forward. I'm gonna keep getting to the next level. I'm gonna keep, I'm saying, I'm gonna keep pushing myself and those around me. Because that's what I'm here for. That's my job. My job is, I'm saying, to be responsible and take care of my family. And that's what I do. That's my job. That's my responsibility. More men need to, I'm saying, recognize their responsibility. And I'm saying, I don't know. I think I look at things differently because my whole family, I'm saying, it's wife, mother-in-law, auntie, sister, daughters, granddaughter. It's just all women in the family. So, I'm the one, I'm saying, that has to be the male role model for, I'm saying, hopefully, you know, but I'm just trying to do the best I can and try and be better than I was yesterday. And hopefully, I'm saying, that works. Because it works for me. Mm. So what's up, people? It's Friday night. I know somebody got something going on. Where we at? Y'all sleeping out there? I done put y'all to sleep. Y'all hit the. Let me get a heart or let me get a thumbs up. Let me get, I'm saying, somebody wake up. Whack, what you doing? Get your finger out of there. Y'all still here? Y'all fell asleep on me. Don't have me come up in there. Nah. It's been like I said, I'm saying, when I found out that my dog passed, it was a trip. It was it was some cold shit. I don't know, I'm saying, because we go back, but we took different paths. And I mean, addiction played a big part. Everybody has their own issues and I have mine, I'm saying, just like everybody else. But it's how you deal with them. And, I, I, am I'm glad. I'm scary. Most people don't know. Yeah, Snow Rock. Snow Rock scary than the mother. Snow scary. I'm creating, digging, and listening to you. Hey, appreciate it, man. I just been reflecting on what's coming next. Because it's a big world. It's a whole. It's opportunities are everywhere. Trying to put these records in order. That's right, man. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, what I'm saying, where I fit. Cause I know, what I'm saying, the company I work for, what I'm saying, this is the best job I ever had. And at one point it was, I remember my immediate boss, he he had did something and messed up. And then the big boss told him, if y'all don't get your shit together. And then he came and he told me, he was like, man, the boss said if we don't get our shit together. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm, I do, what I'm saying, what I was told that my responsibilities, I take care of that. What you mean? But at the time where I was mentally was like, if I lose this job, I'm going back to prison, and I don't think that way no more. But at that time, that's what I thought, you know, because it was a different time. I was in a transition. I was dealing with, that. And there's a lot of things that I'm still dealing with and I'm still working on and I'm gonna be working on, I'm saying, this massive mess, as I call it, which is Joey. And a lot of people, I'm saying, I hide it well. I hide it really well. because the mess is on the inside. And on the outside, you know what I'm saying? People judge the book by its cover because 1 minute is this, 1 minute is, oh, excuse me, can I help you? And then people don't know, is that snow? But you know how it goes. But people judge a book by its cover. And all the time, everywhere I go, people tell me, I'm saying, because I be asked, hey, you know, what do you know what I'm saying, and you know what I'm saying, I done heard all kinds of stuff. Biker, I don't, you know what I'm saying, and that's the thing, when you get to know me, it's like, whoa, this dude, something different. That's okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm cool with that because when I was a kid coming up, my mom always told me I was special. I don't know why they kept putting me on that little yellow bus, but you know what I'm saying? Mom said I was special. Nah, all jokes aside, I'm good with who I am today. You know what I mean? I can look in the mirror and I'm okay with who I am. It's been times when nah, nah. I wasn't standing tall. I was doing, you know what I'm saying, I was about me. I was about the flesh, I was about the world, I was about, you know what I'm saying, chasing the bag, you know what I'm saying, trying to get, you know what I'm saying, my second head wet, trying to live, trying to have as much fun as possible and other people's uncomfort didn't bother me at all. So that led to me, you know, um, taking advantage of people, when I didn't have to, there was other ways. But at the time, I didn't know how to do that. But, you know what I'm saying? As I grow, as I learn, I'm the type that once I see something and I realize, oh, okay, then this ain't the way. So then we can't do that no more. We can't just go back to that. That's not gonna work for me. So now I gotta do something different. What am I gonna do? So it's like an internal thing. And I'm the can't stop, won't stop. I'm the little engine that could. I'm because that is how I have got through to here. And like I said, I've had help along the way. Like I say, I'm saying, like I say, I'm the little engine that could. So the little engine that could was just a train. But now, I'm saying, as I'm pushing and going up the hill, I'm saying, I got the wifey, I'm saying, throwing fuel in, I'm saying, keeping me going, keeping me strong, keeping me, I'm saying, getting over the next hill. And I don't know what I don't know if I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this. I don't think it's a whole lot I wouldn't, what I'm saying, because the wife has changed a lot, got me thinking about things differently. And that's a new thing because I was focused on, well, all that mattered was what I was focused on. And that's the thing. It was hard doing it, but I don't know. I was just focused on the small goal. Every time, what I'm saying, this is what I'm realizing now is that I've always focused on the small goal and I focus on that so much. And then, what I'm saying, I get it because when I was a kid, all I wanted was a name and a reputation. I just wanted to be recognized. But now Snow Rock is a legend. Snow Rock, the name, it's people, what I'm saying, across the country. getting at me, calling me big homie, and you know what I'm saying, telling me that they heard about me and they've been told that they're like me and all this. Man, look, I don't get it. I don't now I understand, you know what I mean, because they were in a situation like I was in. But it's not the same. We're not the same. You know what I'm saying, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because I got people, you know what I'm saying, that don't really know the life, that think they know the life and think they want to be a part of it, but don't want what comes with it. And a lot of people think, you just see all the glitz and glamour and the fame and the fun. And that's not, you know what I'm saying, majority of it is not that. Majority of it is pain and work. Because I had to work to make my name. I didn't get my name. I didn't make my name. I didn't, you know what I'm saying, come up with Snow Rock and think, oh, that'd be a cool name. No, that was a joke. Snow Rock was a joke started by my homeboys because, basing and clowning and cracking on each other was how we got through the day. And it wasn't about being nice. It was about being funnier than the next guy. It was about, you know what I mean, talking about the next guy until, you know what I'm saying, no one else is focused on me. And that, you know what I'm saying, I got jokes. You know what I'm saying, we can, you know what I'm saying, but that's the thing. I had to come up with jokes because I was the easiest target. I was the only white boy in the hood. I was, you know what I'm saying, I was the one that stuck that was different. And then I heard the proverb. There's a Chinese proverb and it goes, the nail that sticks out will get hammered. And I was that nail and I stuck out and I got hammered. I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying, life gave me a hammering. But, you know what I'm saying, if you know anything about, you know what I'm saying, working with metal, then hammering, you know what I'm saying, is just refining and making that metal stronger. So iron sharpens iron. I'm still here, and all the life lessons that I learned during my, I'm saying, years gang banging, ripping and running the streets, selling dope, robbing, stealing, I'm saying, doing all that, and then going to prison. And I went to prison, I'm saying, I went to some of the worst prisons at the time, some of the most violent prisons, and I'll tell you in a minute, I'm saying, my life, I was raised in violence. My whole, I'm saying, the when I came out of my mama, some doctor smacked me. And ever since then I've been getting smacked. But I learned to smack back. And that's the thing, you smack somebody back, and they gonna think about smacking you the next time. And that was my only goal. You know what I'm saying? I'm known for fighting. I have a reputation for fighting. You don't believe me? You know what I'm saying, look up any of the comments. Look at the comments on the No Jumper interview I did with that dude Adam 22. Check out the comments on that because I'm just seeing the comments and I'm like, wow. Because I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? There's people, you know what I'm saying, that was in there with me. It's people, the first interview I ever did with Mitch, with old Mitch. Mitch, what's up, bro? I man, look, now I was incarcerated with this man. I didn't know he did, 37 years, 34 years, something like that. I knew, he was a lifer and and I didn't know the whole extent of the situation. When we linked up, now we hooked up because of Whack. And Whack, you know what I'm saying, hooked me up with this dude, and you know what I'm saying, we talked, and he was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying, and I'm like, yeah, I remember you, you know what I'm saying, you the one came and fixed my water. He was like, yeah. He was like, man, you know what I'm saying, them dudes over there, you know what I'm saying, the other inmates, which were the whites, who were the plumbers. When he went over there and became a plumber, he found out that they weren't fixing my water. I didn't have no water in my sink. So basically, what that means is in my cell, that if you get thirsty or something and you ain't got no water in a jug, you just ass out because all you got is toilet water because ain't no water coming out of the sink. So I'm keep asking you. I'm saying, hey, can you put in a work order? Hey, can you put in a work order? CO, correctional officer, can you put in a work order? So, you know what I'm saying, they get somebody to come out here and fix it. So it's like, yeah, man, I already put in a work order. 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 No one never comes. I didn't have no water in my cell for like, you know what I'm saying, a year and a half. And then this dude became a plumber and found out that the other inmates, weren't fixing my plumbing. So then he came over and fixed it. And he told them, man, look, if you got a problem with that dude, go over there and stab him. Don't leave him without water. He's an inmate. He's one of us. And you know what I'm saying, because they were white and I'm, you know what I'm saying, I'm a white crip. So I'm considered a race traitor. And the whites, you know what I'm saying, they don't even deal with me on like on a major, you know what I'm saying, level. A lot of them, you know what I'm saying, will talk to me and ain't got a problem, but there's the ones with the Aryans and the Nazis and the skinheads, and those are the ones who pressure other people to do their dirty work. So that's why I don't trust none of them, and I wouldn't go in the cell with any one of them because I know the others would pressure him to do something while I'm sleeping because you can't deal with me face to face. That's what I got a reputation for. I got a reputation for standing tall through it all. And when I say that because I went in there with a chip on my shoulder trying to prove something, and I proved something to myself. So the lesson that I learned helped me to get to where I am now. And that's the thing, I stopped taking L's. I don't take losses. Now I'll take a lesson any day, and I have learned that everybody's a teacher. Some people teach you what to do. Some people teach you what not to do. Remember that. Everybody's a teacher. You can learn from everybody. You just got to be willing and acceptable, you know what I'm saying, to the information, the knowledge, the wisdom, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, come on, can I get some thumbs up? Anybody in here? Y'all sleeping? Wake up out there. uh, nah, I'm good. I got the grandbaby, you know what I'm saying, it's grandpa duties this weekend. I'm a happy camper, no complaints. Life is good. Just looking at, you know what I'm saying, my existence and wondering where we're going. What we got, what's the next 50 got in store for us? Because I plan on being here. You know what I mean? I just got to work harder and work better on taking care of myself, you know. But that's the thing, it's not just physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's emotional. If you're not balanced, you gotta have balance, you gotta have stability, you gotta have, that's the thing, you know what I'm saying? I say you gotta have some help. And I got help. I'm grateful, I'm blessed. Wifey, thank you. Appreciate you. Because a lot of people don't know, you guys see me or hear about me or heard about me or whatever, but she's the one been putting up And I know you laughing, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying, I know she has to deal with all of me. And you guys just get this, me smiling, but you know what I'm saying, majority of the time I'm not smiling. I work hard. I gotta work hard to remind myself to smile because smiling wasn't something that came natural. You know, I wasn't in a place where I wanted to smile. In prison, you don't want to be walking around doopy 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 doo. You know what I'm saying? A dumbass smile on your face. Somebody, you know what I'm saying, somebody gonna be sitting there, you know what I'm saying, with a life sentence and mad at you for having a good day. So, you know what I mean, it's crazy that I even think like that or but after I seen some crazy stuff. I seen some foul stuff. I seen some stupid stuff. I seen some things. I seen too much. Let's not go there. Yeah, that was a bad place. That was the thing. Because I was sitting there thinking, like I was thinking about back when I was in Corcoran, and back in the early '90s, it was Corcoran was a foul place. There was a lot of dirty shit, dirty stuff going on with the correctional officers setting up fights. They call it the gladiator days. And I was there during that. I'm glad I didn't get involved or put in. Or I'm glad I didn't get. You know what I'm saying. I'm glad I walked out of there. And I'll never forget when I paroled. I paroled. Excuse me. Not bad manners, just bad food. But my bad, my bad. You know what I'm saying. Why fart and waste it when I can burp and taste it? All right. I'm gonna stop. No, I think I think Corcoran for me was like I took the worst beating at the hands of the correctional officers that I ever taken. I had never been beat like that in my life. I've had, you know what I'm saying, my father was alcoholic and he, you know what I'm saying, used to put his hands on me. And, you know what I'm saying, I've taken, you know what I'm saying, I've taken some beatings over the years, growing up and being the only white boy in the hood. I took my share of lumps and ooey knots and all that. And I ain't never been beat like they beat me when I was, saying I went to the shoot. I got caught with a knife in Chuckawalla. So they sent me to the shoe program. I only had 3 months left on my shoe. And I was there. As soon as I got there, I was running my mouth and ended up, getting talking one of the officers into taking off his badge and gun and coming up in my cell to fight me 1-on-1. So, I got him and it went, it was a short fight. I ended up getting him into a chokehold and a sleeper and he tapped out. So I let him go. I didn't want to kill the police, so I let him go. And after that, I thought it was over with. But his friends found out. They came and they paid me a visit because you in the shoe. If anybody knows about the shoe, your door doesn't open unless you're cuffed up. And all of a sudden, my door started opening. And what I'm saying, this is like 3 in the morning. I don't know what time it is. I don't have a watch, clock, or anything else. But they came in with full gear on and they held me down. I'm talking about stretched me out. And then they beat me. I'm talking about, I'm saying? There was people holding me and other people just beating me. And I don't know how many. You know what I'm saying? There was people sitting on me or standing on me or kicking me or holding me or hitting me with something. And I was told that they hit me with a flapjack. I didn't know what that was, but later I found out, it's a piece of lead inside of a leather case. And, you know what I'm saying? They hit you with it. And, you know what I'm saying? It's foul. They beat the mess out of me. And I passed out from getting kicked in the nuts. But I saw a documentary, and they was talking about Corcoran and all the you know what I'm saying all the stuff that goes on. Man, you know what I'm saying these fools is foul because one cop finally came forward and said something. That's the only reason you know what I'm saying. Oh, they got that green coat of silence. That's because the pigs don't tell on other pigs. They just smarter than us. They always get us to tell on each other, but they don't tell on each other. Even the ones that are dirty, they ain't gonna tell on the clean ones. Ain't gonna tell on the ones that's dirty. You ain't gonna, tell on your coworker. So that's the thing. I mean, they take care of each other. And their union is strong. I used to read their information when I was working in the complex control. We used to have to do the janitorial out there, so I used to read their bulletin board and read all their information while I was at work. It was a trip, but I was learning because I didn't understand or know a lot of what I was reading. But you know what I'm saying, later now, you know what I'm saying, but some of the stuff, you know what I'm saying, I would have to go look that stuff. I would look that stuff up, but I had partners, you know what I'm saying, who I could go to and get the information that I needed to lead me to the understanding. But this it's all about, you know what I'm saying, working on self. When you stop working on yourself, that's when you start to die. You gotta keep changing, keep evolving, keep pushing forward. That's like the train. If the train stops, then you know what I'm saying, it's hard to get started. Once you get started, you just gotta keep going. That's it. That's my thing. That's what I do. I try and talk myself into stuff. Try and motivate myself, and I'm not easy on myself, but I'm not easy on anybody else. At the same time, you know what I'm saying. I push the people around me. That's my responsibility because half-assing and taking the easy route ain't gonna get it because you gotta work hard. If you don't, what I mean, if you don't have time to do it twice, wait a minute, I'm sorry. If you don't have time to do it twice, if you don't have time to do it twice, if you don't have time to do it right, then you don't have time to do it twice. I'm murdering that saying. I don't know why I can't get it. I got a Jason Dobbs moment. Jason, if you're out there, keep your head up. My dog. Man, yeah, that was that brain fart. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm just at that point where, you know, it's time to do something different again. When you do something different, then something different happens. So it's time to make some changes, do something different. Time to level up. Something, you know. Gotta gotta keep pushing forward. Can't stop, won't stop is how we do it. Uh, so, is anybody left? Anybody got any questions? Anybody got anything they want to know? They want to hear? Going once, going twice. All right, people. I will talk to y'all next week, Friday, 9 o'clock. Stay tuned. If you don't want to do it twice, do it right the first time. Thank you. See, that's all I needed. Thank you. Who was that? What was your name? Nicole Farnham, 8121. Nicole, thank you very much for your comment. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for the love, Snow. Felix, appreciate you for tapping in. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all have a good one. Have a good night. And the weekend is going to begin.